Hello, good afternoon everyone. My name's Brendan. I work for a company called Assima. We help organizations, medium-sized and large, to improve user performance, to improve their business efficiency and reduce their training costs. And we do it through a 70-20-10 model. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how we do that today, give you some examples. I'm going to play a couple of videos as well that show the sort of technologies that we use in order to do that. So when you're trying to teach people in organizations about how they use systems applications, most of the people that you will train will have a basic level of skill. They'll be able to use the tools that they're given. They'll be able to use their Excel. They'll be able to use their SAP to a basic level. They gain more of an understanding once you start to train them properly on the tool. And they gain an even more knowledge when you start to train them on why they're using the tool and on the systems process that they're using. Most people take that sort of training and they do it in a classroom format. What we're going to look at today is how you can get past a barrier so that you can start to have people actually add value to the business. So not just use the tool, but how they can start to add a value to the business by the training process that you're giving to them. So most companies spend a lot of money on the rollout of large critical ERP systems. It's a very expensive project to roll out a SAP, a Microsoft Dynamics, to roll out HR and finance and logistics systems. So what you want to do is you want to be able to make use of that investment. Can people hear me at the back of the room? Okay, because I can hear 3 other people talking to me. So the key is to get people from a knowledge to a competency level. And what we do in Assima is we work in a few different ways in order to do that. So the 70-20-10 model is all about people actually learning how to do something by actually doing it. I spoke to someone this morning and I think he's in the room, Martin, and it was people learn to cycle a bike by cycling a bike. The kids nowadays, they learn how to play games by playing games. People learn much more by actually doing things, and that's what the 70-20-10 model is all about. You can get so much from a formal class. You can get so much more, a little bit more, from the collaboration and social media and working with things like Yammer and blogs. But you'll never ever get the experience that you'll learn from by actually doing it rather than watching someone else. So we work with companies in the rollout of live applications in order to train them to a certain level, and then we work with them while they're actually doing the job to train them more. And we're going to look at that today. At Assima, we use a cloud platform to provide technology that will give companies more of the 70 and the 7-20-10. So the first thing that we do is we look at Vimego Train. And what Vimego Train does is we use that in order to give people practice in applications prior to them using the software in a live environment. So it's hands-on practice. They think that they're in a live environment. They It has a real life look, a real life feel of a live environment, and people do not even know they're not in a live environment when they use it. And this will be for any software application that you want. Okay? So Vimego Train is the first bit, training people and giving them practice. And giving them that practice as many times as they want, whenever they want it. It's a 24/7. And if they don't get it the first time, they can do it the second, the third, the fourth. They can keep repeating it until they do it. So many companies use it as a replacement for the typical training clients. So most of our companies don't have training clients. I'm going to show you a little video in a minute of how Vimego Train works. Then when people have finished the training, then they go on to the live application. And what we have is a performance support piece of software. And there are other ones, we'll show you what ours can do. And performance support is a layer that sits across the top of your live applications. And it knows who people are, it knows what application they're in, it knows what screen they're on, it knows what field they're on, and it starts to help and provide help and guidance when they're on the job, so you're not taking people away. So it's adding to the on-the-job training. There's an analysis part to that where you can start to analyze how people are learning, where do they ask for help, where does the system provide guidance to them, and you can start to analyze where more training is required. The collaborative side of it also supports that 20%. So you can start to use it to work with colleagues. You can rate content that you're providing to people. So from a training and development point of view, you've got this massive content that you're about to provide to people. What about getting some feedback as to whether people think it's any good and whether it's helped them? So you're getting this collaborative feedback back, so you can start to analyze all of the content that you have seen. So I'm going to run a very short video in a minute that's going to explain the Vimego Train part of our product. And what it does is it clones systems processes. It creates a realistic look and feel of the live application. And it allows you, the author, or you, the learner, or you, the business, to actually easily change the screens. So it's not like a screen picture. You can actually change the screens and you can change the data on the screens. So if you have captured of a live HR system, you can change easily the people's names and their details. If you capture a finance system, you can change the account details. If you're rolling out globally, you can change all of the fields on the screen to French, to German, to Arabic, to Chinese. Those systems don't actually have to be there. So we're going to show you a very short video on how that's achieved. So that was quite short, but it shows you a little bit about the flexibility of that particular application. It shows you that you can create this realistic look and feel. One of our customers has used that application. It's a charity called Plan International. They're quite a big charity. They have around 10,000 workers. They have offices in 53 countries, 275 locations, and they had a particular challenge. The challenge was that they wanted to roll out a finance and HR system. They needed it in 3 different languages. They needed to send it to countries with low bandwidth, and they needed to send it to a mixture of workers and volunteers that work with Plan in order to develop the care of underprivileged children. So there's a whole mix of literacy with people being skilled up on PCs and people not. And of course, as it's a charity, there's always a limited budget on how much they can actually spend on internal resources. We work with Plan. We finished the project last year. They reckon that they saved over £1 million just in the replacement of the training client on its own. The e-learning element to it, they reckon that they saved 6,000 man days in content. And they reckon that they saved at least 400 days in the translation of the content into the 3 different languages. Well, the biggest advantage to them, all of the savings are there, but the biggest advantage was that was the speed to competency. The training material was available to them all of the time, 24/7. They could learn and practice until they got there. And they made year-on-year savings. So you've gone through this process, you've created your training client, you've now trained all your people, everybody's competent, and you put them onto the live application. The one thing that we can guarantee is change will come along. There'll be systems changes, new fields, new screens, new versions of the application. There'll be process changes, regulatory changes, governance change. Any sort of change that you want will be there. This is where the Vimego Assist platform comes into play. So what a lot of people experience is that they train people and they get them to a certain level. And then they go off to use the live application. And in the live application, maybe they don't use certain things very often. Maybe they don't do the month-end process. Maybe they don't do the year-end process. So their learning capability falls away. Their knowledge declines over a period of time. What you really want is for it to actually continue once people have finished the training. And that's where performance support comes into play. So you've got this improved or increased knowledge transfer that you're going to give to your employees at the point of need when they're on the job. I'm going to show you a second video now of Assima's performance support platform in operation, and in particular how it supports a user or a new user that's just moved into a live environment.
Throughout the following example, we will illustrate how Vimego can support businesses looking to reduce user time to competency, save on IT support costs, reduce operational risks, and increase customer satisfaction. Here, you are a newly qualified sales order processor. You have been trained on the subject area, but still require support and guidance when using the live system. You need to create a new sales order for a customer. You must find the sold to party using the search facility, confirm the ship to address, and complete the order. When you first access the transaction, Vimego will check to see if you have passed the relevant training lesson. This aids business compliance and ensures only certified personnel are allowed to access a transaction. If you believe you are seeing this message in error, there is a link to contact the support group who will check your status. A link is provided which will open the relevant training content directly from the application. Once the lesson is complete and your score recorded, you will be granted entry into the transaction immediately on your return. Within the transaction, there is a selection of help available to guide you through your task. The note on the screen highlights the main tasks you would normally perform in this transaction and also shows related content that you might be interested in. Here you will find extra reference materials to download and read later. Introduction videos and additional lessons to refresh your memory and increase your knowledge base. The table of contents pushes out a selection of content at a transactional level. The guidance feature helps you navigate and complete the transaction correctly. It gives information on what screen you are on, which steps you need to perform, and the data to be entered. Just as the guide gives you information on the process to follow, on-screen e-notes provide supplementary help conveying business information about a particular stage or a particular field. The guide and e-note work together, providing complementary information, ensuring you complete the task correctly. The first step is to enter the order type. This first e-note explains the difference between a standard order and a rush order, so you can confirm that you are following the right sales order process. The guide is able to support you through each step of the process, highlighting the appropriate action on the screen and integrating the accompanying e-note to provide additional information in context. Here you need to enter the sold to party. The e-note gives you a tip on searching by postcode and provides a quick reference guide for you to download for future reference. Or, alternatively, you could use the search guide to guide you through the steps. When launched, this temporarily replaces the main guide. The mini guide synchronizes to the dialogue, helping you perform your search. The guide suggests finding the sold to party via postcode or name, and the e-note provides an additional tip on using wildcards to improve efficiency. Once you have found the correct entry, you can return to the main guide to continue the task. Now you've entered the sold to party, Vimego reminds you that you need to select the right sales area for the customer when multiple exist. You must also confirm the system has defaulted to the correct ship to party. Placing reminders such as this encourage and instill best practice. Now that the ship to party field has been filled, an e-note appears reminding you that it is good practice to always confirm you have the right delivery address for the customer, as lost, delayed or undelivered orders all have an impact on our customer satisfaction. It also informs what to do next if the address is incorrect and pre-fills the email ready to send to the customer master data team. The guide synchronizes to your current screen. To find out which steps you need to perform on a screen, you can click the instruction to have it highlighted. You can now enter the PO number and PO date, and the requested delivery date. Additional explanation is given on this field, letting you know why the date must be later than the default. Again, it gives a solution if the customer is requesting a date earlier than is allowed. Lastly, Vimega reminds you to always enter an order reason, even though it isn't a mandatory field, as it is good practice and really helps the company with reporting and analytics. Once the material code and order amount has been entered, there's nothing left to do but save your order. You have optimized your time with personalized guidance, reducing time to competency. You have not had to call support, reducing overall IT support costs. You have reduced operational risks by performing the task in the optimum way. You have increased customer satisfaction by recording the order efficiently. Improve user performance and business efficiency with Vimega, an all-encompassing solution that covers your training, performance support, content management, collaboration, and analytical needs.
So that was an example in SAP. Software works across most applications. In that example, you saw a number of things. Firstly, you saw end users making requests. So an end user can make a request, and that request for help can be anything. It can be your best practice, can be help, training people put in, can be guidance, governance, compliance, any sort of information that you feel shall help people, you can make appear. And it will appear in the language or the local language of the person that's using it. So you can get it to appear in French if the people speak in French. Obviously the material has to be there. The second point that you saw was that the authors are pushing information. So whenever there's any change and you want to make any notification of the change, you can push anything you want to the end user. So you can be telling them about changes to anything that in the process of the system or the business or the regulation that has changed. The third aspect to it was, and you saw that it can validate, so where it come up and asked for a reason, which wasn't a mandatory field, you can make people put a mandatory field. You can make it such that the transaction doesn't go ahead if you want that information to be there. But you can start to validate and you can start to reduce the risk areas of your business, or you can start to reduce the amount of errors, for instance, in call centers that are made. So you can start to work on where is the rework, where are the mistakes that people make, and we can actually start to improve and reduce those. So one of the customers, the companies we work with, 20% of what's entered in the data center is incorrect and has to be reworked through. The savings that they make to get that down to 5% to 2% is amazing in time. Okay. And finally, all of that information, when anybody asks for information, when any information is read, when any governance information is read, all of it is tracked. One of our customers also tracks error messages that come through. So they have a really bad error message, and they replace the error message with a proper message that explains the problem and a proper message that explains the fix, right? So you can have it track error messages, and then you can go into this and you can start to look at your business. So where are people asking for help? Where are errors happening in the applications and the processes that are happening? And you can start to then look at where you need to spend your time and focus on making the next training areas happen. So one of our customers was entering business-to-business transactions. They needed to enter the equivalent of the company registration number, effectively the number that's held at company's house. That field wasn't validated in the application. It just simply took a 8 or 9 digit number. One of the things we did was we took the application, we went to company's house with it, and we brought back to the screen while they were entering all of the company house details of that company. So they can validate or even cut and paste into the application. So the So the amount of rework just in that one field that they save was incredible. There was a hospital, we worked with a hospital in the Netherlands where they invoiced a third party. And after about 30 to 60 days and they weren't paid, they would ring up the third party and they would ask the questions, why haven't you paid us? And the answer was, well, you've put the incorrect invoice code on the invoice. So the hospital then had to re-engineer the invoice, send it out again, and then it was another 30 to 60 days before they were paid. We put this system in there, we validated simply the invoice code, and it brought their payment terms from 140 days down to 50 days. So it more than halved it just in that one field. So the application is not just about giving you that 70-20-10 and that training people and notifying people when they're on the job. It's starting to add business value as well. It's starting to add rework. So I'm going to finish now. That was the last point I'm going to make, because I know it's everybody wants to have some lunch. If there's any questions, we've got a few minutes left. If anybody has any questions that they want to answer. Okay. So the question that was asked was, it looks as if it's orientated around systems training. Can it be adapted for general practical training? Well, the answer is that it's computer based, so it will work over any web application. So if you've got web applications, for instance, that address general needs, you can start to deploy content. You can actually have the search facility for bringing content to the screen over anything. You can have it working in Office, you can have it working in Outlook, and people can go in and actually search and bring content. So any training content that you've got in your learning content management system or in SharePoint or any content, you can make it appear at the screen, and it doesn't have to be over that particular application. It can be over. It can just be a click and up comes the search and you can go into it. Okay. I'm going to finish it there. It's nearly 12:30 and I know people want to have some lunch. So if anybody wants to talk to us, we have a stand at the back of the room where we've got a demonstration, actual proper demonstration rather than videos, of all of the applications that you've seen. And if you want to talk about how we work at 70-20-10 in some of the large organizations we do, we'll be happy to speak with you. So thank you very much for your time.